Hey everyone, so I'm going to show you my free methods for speeding up a computer. It doesn't matter if you're running Windows XP or Windows 7 or Windows 8 or 8.1. They'll all work basically the same way. Even getting to most of the settings are all accessed the same way. So I'll try and explain each operating system as best I can, just so I don't lose anybody. So first thing I would probably do is just your visual settings. Basically that's anything that animates when you're opening up a window, or any kind of toolbars that when they open they make kind of crazy animations. So what we do is, in Windows 8 at least, you can go down to the start button or just put your mouse cursor down the bottom left and hit the control panel. Head down to System, to Advanced System Settings. And this is the same on all operating systems, XP, 7, and Windows 8. You'll have this Performance section under Advanced, and you're going to want to hit Settings. This is also exactly the same for the most part. Right now I have mine set to Custom, but yours will probably be set to Let Windows Choose. So pretty much everything's going to be checked off by default. What I do, I usually start from the bottom, which is Adjust for Best Performance, and that unchecks everything. And this is a good way to do it just because you can see what you can live without and what you can't. I personally kind of like some of the visual aspects of the toolbars and all the menus, so I do like to use drop shadows for the icon labels. Definitely smooth edges of screen fonts because it looks a lot better on the icons on the desktop. Show contents while dragging. That's so that when you move around a window it kind of drags it with it. Shadows usually make things look a little bit better but don't have that much of a performance impact, so you can check those off. I don't usually fade or slide menus. It's kind of a waste to me. The peak, whether you're on Windows 7 or Windows 8, arrow peak really isn't too bad. It's kind of a handy feature too if you want to just preview what's going on in another window, like here. So I don't really mind that. Animations in the toolbar, taskbar, that's really up to you. You could see how it affects your computer personally, depending on what kind of specs you have. Windows minimizing and maximizing. I've seen a lot of computers really bogged down with this for some reason. Whatever it is, whether it's calculating the window size and then animating to that, normally on a slower computer I would turn that off. Animate controls and elements inside the window, that's not bad. That'll just give you some kind of glide effect when you're moving around inside of a window. You can experiment with that as well. And then once you're done selecting what you do want, then you can press apply, and that'll save all your settings that you just made. The settings will take place immediately, so it might lag a little bit after you press apply, and then press OK, and press OK again. Okay, so next, now we're going to do some hard drive maintenance. What I've got here is a free program called CCleaner, short for crap cleaner. I've been using this for like 6 or 7 years now. It's probably one of my favorite things to use as a free program. I would run it as an administrator. You can right click on the icon, run it as administrator. We'll open up this small box here. Now it'll default to the cleaner, which is basically going to scan all your temporary files, history, cookies, just temporary files that are created by programs that you use on a daily basis. What you want to do is hit Analyze, and it'll do a quick scan. Well, not really a quick scan, depending on how much you have. It could take up to 5-10 minutes. Mine's only got about a gig of temporary stuff to remove, so we'll hit the Run Cleaner after it's done scanning. It'll ask if you want to delete these files permanently. You just say yes. It's very safe with system files. It doesn't mess with anything, so don't be afraid when it gives you that warning. When it's done, it'll say how much has been removed, and we can move on to registry. Click on the registry tab over here, and it's going to scan your registry for any inconsistencies. After you uninstall a program, sometimes it'll leave registry files behind. So this will scan for those and give you a nice big list, and everything will be checked off by default, and just press Fix Selected Issues. It'll ask if you want to back up changes to the registry. You can do it or not do it. Normally I just say no. Then you can see here I've got 1 out of 83 selected, so I'm just going to say Fix All, and it's going to fix all 83. Press Close, and some of those changes will be made immediately, and most will probably have to require a restart. Okay, so that takes care of some of the hard drive. What we really want to do next is scan your hard drive, now that we've got all the junk off of it, or most of the junk, and see what can be defragged. If you are running an SSD hard drive, you do not need to defrag. I'd advise not defragging it at all, actually. SSDs are very sensitive to reading and writing, and if you do it too many times, it'll start to degrade your performance. But for a traditional hard drive, which most people have, it's definitely safe. You can do it as much as you want, but I usually recommend like once every couple weeks. So we've got Oslogic Disk Defrag, also free, and it's been around forever, and they've really kind of perfected it at this point. It's going to list all your hard drives. I would start just doing one at a time, and starting with your C drive. Now you want to make sure there's a checkbox here next to the C drive, and just click this little arrow next to defrag, and just do an analyze. It'll do an analyze of your entire hard drive, where the files are placed. Anything that's in these small gray boxes is free space. Anything that's red means it's fragmented. Anything that's green means it's good to go. And basically the goal of this is to get all the data moved as far up as possible without creating these spaces in between everything. Moving the data as close together as possible. And that ultimately helps your hard drive when it has to read through files. Right here, mine's all red because I'm running an SSD hard drive, and SSDs kind of spread everything out. It's just the way they work, so this isn't really a worry to me. But if you do have a regular hard drive and it looks like this, you should immediately defrag. So what you want to do next is click the little arrow and choose the option for defrag and optimize. It is going to take a little bit longer, depending on how much stuff you have on your hard drive. I would allot at least maybe 2 to 3 hours of defrag time for this, depending on the speed of your computer. But I would probably do that towards the end of the night, say if you're not planning on using the computer. And just check off this turn off PC after defragmentation. When you click that, once it's finished defragging, it'll shut off your computer automatically, so you can kind of set it and forget it. Next thing we want to do is look at our services, the services that we're running. Every computer will have the same menu for this. Basically, you want to get to your control panel and hit Administrative Tools, then Services. XP, Windows 7, and Windows 8 are going to have this, so just double click on it, and it's going to look exactly the same for all of them, just a few different ones for each operating system. Some might have more or less. Now let's take a look at this status here. It'll show what's running, what's not running, and what's automatic and what's disabled, and what's manually triggered by, say, the program opening. The ones that I disable would be home group listener, unless you use a home group, because it's going to constantly be searching for a home group. I've never found a use for home group. I'm pretty sure not many people do either. What else we got? Windows Media Player Network Sharing Service. I've safely disabled that on all my computers since Windows Vista was first out. Windows Search. Windows Search I've disabled here because it uses that search indexer, which sometimes takes up a lot of RAM. Windows Search can be useful if you use, say, Microsoft Outlook and you search through your emails a lot, or if you search through your computer a lot for files. What the indexer does, what Windows Search does, is it indexes your files so that when you do search for them, it just has to look for an index and it can find the file a little bit quicker. But that has nothing to do with programs opening or loading something. That's only for you personally searching for a specific file. I haven't really found a good use for that other than that, so I do disable that. You definitely want to be careful in what you disable in this menu, because a lot of these services are system services, which if you do disable them, things will start getting funky. Once we figured out what services you can disable, let's say this media player server, you go to properties and it'll bring up all the information about it, and normally it'll be services started and automatic or something. What you want to do is set it to disabled and press stop. It'll stop the service, and then you press apply, and that service will no longer run as long as your computer's on, and it won't start up with your computer either. So that is also going to help your startup times and free up a little bit of RAM for you. Okay, so that's done. Okay, next thing I want to show you is browsing performance. Obviously everybody uses a browser, whether it be Chrome or Internet Explorer, and a lot of people I've seen when I've done a tune-up on their computer is they have a lot of toolbars. Toolbars are a browser killer. What you want to do is check to see what browser toolbars you do have installed. Go to Programs and Features, or Add and Remove Programs if you're in Windows XP, and see if you see any listed toolbars that are installed. You might not have even noticed that you've installed them, because sometimes when you install a program, it'll have a small checkbox that says install this toolbar, and you didn't even notice it. Like Ask Toolbar. Ask Toolbar is the most common culprit. It shows up in like hundreds of installers of free popular software, so a lot of people install it not even knowing. So if you do see one of those, Ask Toolbar, any kind of toolbar that you don't use, just uninstall it. That way it'll get rid of it from Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox, and it won't load when you open up the browser. That's one of the major performance killers of browsers. It's loading toolbars, and you'll notice that as soon as you uninstall those toolbars, anything that loads with the browser, your startup time of your browser will go down by seconds. This is Windows Internet Explorer 11. No toolbars, it just pops right up. No delays in anything. Chrome, no toolbars, just pops right up. So yeah, that gives you an idea of no toolbars. Unless you actually need a toolbar for something, then go for it. But for the most part, uninstall Google Toolbar because you don't need it anymore. Just set your home page to Google, or if you're in Internet Explorer 9 or above, you can set the internet address bar as Google's Google search engine. So see, I've got it set right here, and I can just type into Google straight from here, and it'll take me to a Google search. So that eliminates the need for the Google toolbar, which is basically just a search toolbar. In Chrome, the address bar is the search bar for Google, and it'll just go straight to Google anyways. So yeah, just uninstall every toolbar. Even Norton toolbar is not necessary. It's not necessary for the antivirus to run. So if you do want to uninstall it or disable it from within Internet Explorer, then go ahead and do it, because either way the antivirus will still work. Okay, one of the last things you want to do on this list is check for your drivers. Driver updates are constantly being released by manufacturers to accommodate for new operating systems or new updates that come out, and a lot of times they'll include performance fixes. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is check for drivers. Drivers can possibly help performance. If anything, it can fix bugs. So if you're crashing or if you're having graphical glitches in your games, a lot of times graphics drivers can help fix those things. So what you want to do is figure out whether you're running NVIDIA, ATI, or just standard Intel integrated graphics cards. Personally, I have an NVIDIA, so whenever I want to check for graphics drivers, I have GeForce Experience here, and there's a drivers tab, and it'll tell me if I'm up to date. And I can also manually check for updates. I definitely recommend this because it does optimize whatever application you're working with automatically and applies the correct settings for your graphics card. ATI has basically the same thing called Catalyst Control Center, and you can download that from the ATI's website just by searching from your graphics card. Intel, their updates get fed directly through Microsoft Update or Windows Update, so you can just check for updates on Windows and it'll automatically install once you've done it. So every once in a while just run Windows Updates and check to see if it's there. Okay, I think this might be the last thing. I know I'm going to forget something that I normally do, but you want to check to see what your page file is. You want to get to the control panel, go to System, then Advanced System Settings, Performance Settings, Advanced, and check your virtual memory. Virtual memory is kind of like an extension to your RAM. So if a program needs a lot of RAM and it can't be accommodated by the amount that you have, it'll look for the virtual memory, which is a section of your hard drive that acts as if it were RAM. Depending on how much RAM you have, you can make this bigger or smaller. If you have a low amount, like 1 gig or 2 gigs, you might want to set it to something around 3,000 megabytes by setting a custom size here, initial size, maximum size. If you do have a large amount of RAM, like 4 or 8 or 16 like mine, you can set this pretty low actually, because a program's really never gonna eat up that much RAM unless you do animations or Revit, any kind of AutoCAD. It might be beneficial to have like 2 or more. For my purposes, I set mine to 1 gig just because I do have an SSD and 16 gigs of RAM, so I don't really see myself using that much. Just be careful, because whatever you set here, it's going to be unusable on your hard drive, so it can take up space. So if you do have a small hard drive, just take that into account whenever you make this. Once you're done, press OK. It'll ask if you want to apply, and then it'll tell you that it will be applied on your next restart. Okay, so the last thing I could recommend is removing any programs that you don't need. What you want to do is just go to the control panel. If you're in Windows 8 or 7, you just go to Programs and Features, and just take a long look at the list, and anything that you installed that you don't need, just right click and uninstall it. These things take up space, they could be running without your knowledge, so anything that you think you don't need, or you know you don't need, just uninstall it and be done with it. Alright, I think that's everything. Okay, so the last thing I could recommend is something that I personally use and I've paid for. You don't have to use it, it's not really necessary, but I've been kind of trialing it for the past like 5 or 6 months. It's called System Mechanic. Basically what it does is everything that CCleaner and Disk Defrag do, but it's like an all-in-one solution. It'll check for hard drive errors, registry fragmentation, It'll check your internet settings to make sure there's nothing wrong. It might even speed up your internet if you have the wrong settings. There's a whole slew of tools, lots of all-in-one tools, individual tools, and they're constantly releasing updates, so if you want to give that a try, they've got quite a few utilities. Personally, I just use the Analyze, does deep analysis, tells me a whole bunch of things are wrong with my computer, and then I let it do its thing. But so far it hasn't crashed my computer, and my computer's been staying good, so I kind of trust it also. Alright, so that's the end of the video. If there's anything that I've forgotten, I'll add them to another video, or make a separate video maybe. But this is basically everything that I do for a fresh install, as far as services and msconfig. I'm pretty confident that anything you do in this video will have an impact on performance. So give these things a shot and let me know how it is in the comments.